a bit of the recap. We have a young man called T. I'm reading this book, but they used a different name. But as for me, I'm using T because it may be someone's name, so I'm just using any later. For some someone who's called T, not in a bad way, but I'm just using that later. That later just came into my head. I'm like, let me use this. So we have these the title is called the trauma you faced during your childhood could be governing the way you hold your experiences and emotions right now. So we get to see that before the father of T died, because he died, the father used to tell T, men don't cry and don't cry when I'm dead. If you cry, you're not a man. If you cry, you're not going to be respected and you're not going to be loved. That was from the dad of T. So eventually we get to see that before T's dad died, T was already in a committed relationship with a young woman, and they were like in a serious relationship. So we get to see that eventually T's dad died and T cried. He couldn't take it anymore. That was in the first chapter. So they wiped T's tears, but remember, T's dad told him to not cry or he is not going to be a man and he won't be respected or loved. What happened next? So if you're new here, just go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment. Yeah. And this story is going to be dedicated to all the people that have faced some traumas during their childhood and they're still recovering from them. So then we get to see that T, when he calms down a little, he pulls back and looks at her. That is the woman that T is in love with. His deep-seated childhood believes that he is weak. So right now T thinks that he's weak because he is seen crying, unworthy and not a man. Remember before T's dad died, they told T, if you do cry, you're not going to be loved, you're not going to be respected, and you are not going to be a man. But this time around, the dad has died and T has cried. So T is thinking that he's weak, he's unworthy, and he's not a man. If he cries screaming through his mind and his eyes, he sees his drain, this and rejection. He perceives that his partner no longer loves him because he's let the wall down and she can no longer view him as a real man. So apparently after the tears that were flowing from T's eyes, he thinks that he's not going to be loved, he's unworthy, he's not a man, and he's not going to be loved by his woman because he's seen crying, which they have really put this belief in some of you. So we get to see that, and I'm not going to be a real man because he has cried. And the beaten down further by his new grief for a very man who forgot his limiting beliefs. T can't take it. He's no longer able to look his partner in the eyes. And he feels he has no opinion but to distance himself from her and ask for a breakup a short time later. So I think T thinks that he's just thinking, if I cried, I need a breakup because my partner is not going to love me because I'm not going to be a riddle man. I'm going to be respected. I'm worthless because I cry. But crying over something that is painful because he lost his dad. So eventually T cried, and that is what is running through T's mind right now. But really, there was no distrain in her eyes, only love, concern, and sympathy through T's girlfriend. T's girlfriend, the eyes really showed love, concern, and sympathy because the partner has lost a dad. But T couldn't understand what was really there in front of him because all he could see were the beliefs that were painful, ethic in his mind, enchanted in his mind. If he could done the work to acknowledge and release those beliefs, he could have been able to accept her, sorry, support and move through his grief. So we get to see with a caring partner by his side. But he could never done that work. He could never know how to, or even know that he needed to. He could be left without questioning the lies that his childhood trauma had told him, and so he felt and acted those lies even as an adulthood. So the lies, the beliefs, let me get to that, the beliefs you get to tell your kid are the beliefs that they're going to carry for the rest of their life until they overcome the trauma. So we get to say who is taking, who is talking, and then we get to say the trauma. To understand why T or anyone else might feel emotional or take action based on limiting beliefs from childhood, let's discuss something I often work on with people. I have talked about this on social media a number of times. So if you have been with me for long, with the idea may already be familiar to you. We have begun with a question. Is your intuitions or your trauma taking the lead? Is it taking the lead? Trauma tells us to avoid being hurt again to all costs. And when trauma takes the lead in our emotions, state, and decision making process, it blocks our natural intuitions. Trauma feeds the fearful. So those are some of the chapter in chapter 2, some of the storylines that I have for you and what they are in discussions. So hello everyone. So we get to see that everyone has intuitions, yes, including you who is watching. From a psychological perspective, intuitions in an intense ability to piece together scripts of information and emotional impression to form a feeling about something or someone. So you get to see that T had a belief of the dad telling him, men should not cry. If you do cry, you're going to be a real man. If you do cry, you're going to be worthless. You're not going to be loved. And that was from the father, from T. But T had to follow to his adulthood. So intuition's best responses, a choice feeling or response guided by intuitions usually come from these qualities: a calm sense of knowing, a feeling of freedom or being liberated, and a dramatic and straightforward voice. No intense need to justify yourself with logic, awareness, and steadiness. You feel that you are here in your present moment. A protective, guiding, and supportive tone, a clear version of the outcome or the future, the willingness to surrender to the unknown. Then the trauma based responses. Then we get to see that the anxiety and fearless assumptions or judgment, a feeling of being laminated or trapped, a dramatic, even fantasy voice, an intense need to approve the logic and rotational best behind the response, a feeling that your heart is sinking and your mind is dark or forced on the past, and perhaps using the past to justify your response, feeling of being lost and confused. Yeah, that, that's so we get to see the next chapter. I don't know if you guys are going to be here, but I hope you have learned something. That sometimes the beliefs that we carry from our childhood to adulthood really do affect us so much. So we're going to see that trauma feeds the fearful, wounded, accept accept aspect of the ego and drives us to make decisions based on that pain. In concert, when intuitions guides our decisions and communication, we act from a place of love and steadiness. So those are some of the things that I'm reading for you that you guys may have interest in. And that was the chapter 2 of a story time of T, though it was really touching. Respecting our own boundaries. Are you a bit of an introvert or enjoy hanging out with people but need private space to recharge at home? You need to deceive to tell your partner that inviting friends over 3 nights a week is too much for you, and have that need to be respected. Yeah, so you have to respect your own boundaries. Setting a simple guide to setting boundaries. So what are some of the boundaries you put for yourself? Like what are some of the boundaries as you yourself respecting your own boundaries, you know? Respecting your own boundaries. What are they? As we are going to discuss more, as like, are you an introvert, an extrovert? So what are some of the boundaries that you can set for yourself? So I think that is going to be another topic for us when we come back. Love you guys, and ciao ciao.